Tina Jones. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and you are watching Black Girl Therapists in the Wild. And this is a little show I like to call Therapist Sips and Reviews. Today we are sipping on Stella Rosa Black, and we are reviewing Lovecraft Country Season 1, Episode 1, Sundown. So yes, this was a good episode. I enjoyed it a lot. I enjoyed the dynamics between the characters. I felt like the sci-fi part was magnifique. And I'm excited for the next episode because it ended on a cliffhanger, and I hate fucking cliffhangers. So yes, let's get started. So we start with meeting Atticus. Atticus is the main character of the show. He is leaving Kentucky on a bus, going to see his family in Chicago because he is trying to find his missing dad. He is on the bus. How we start off is he's having a dream about the war. So I guess he was in the war. I'm assuming World War II, something like that. I don't know exactly, but he is dreaming about the war. I didn't know this was a dream when it first started. I just felt like, oh, this is real. We're jumping into the sci-fi. But then he's in the trenches, basically fighting the people and whatever the fuck, and he climbs out the trenches, and all of a sudden there's aliens in the sky and world of the war, robot aliens walking around, and there's a spaceship hovering over, and there's Lovecraftian creatures, and then Jackie Robinson and some Asian woman painted in red that's supposed to be an alien coming down from the ship, and all sorts of dumb shit. And then he wakes up and he's on the bus in the colored section of the bus going to Chicago, and there's another woman sitting there, and he asks her where they're going, and she says they are, or where they're at. That's what he asked. And she's like leaving Kentucky and going over some bridge that's probably named after some slave owner or some shit. Just happy to go. They're happy to go. He puts the middle finger out the window and says good riddance to the slave country, the racism country. And then, he starts looking out the window, and the tire on the bus pops. So the tire on the bus pops, and they all have to get off the bus. And he's sitting off to the side reading a book and stuff like that. And then a truck comes to pick up the people to take them to the next town so the next bus can get them. And the truck is apparently only for the white people. So the white people get on the truck, and Atticus and the black woman start walking down the street towards the town, walking down the highway. Let's get it right. They were on a highway towards the town. And she's asking him what he was reading and things like that. So apparently he's a blurred, and it's so interesting to see that's a black nerd. A black nerd in the Jim Crow era, living his life, and he likes to read Pulp Fiction. So she asked him what he was reading. I forgot the name of it, but it was a science fiction book, and I love it. I love it. I just, let's see how this plays out, how his character unfolds and everything like that. But they're walking down the street, and she asked him, why is he going to Chicago? And he says that he's going to see his dad, and that his dad is missing. And then she just gives him the most creepy stare. I just felt like, I guess if someone tells you they're going to see a family member that was missing, you're going to look at them a type of way, like, what the fuck happened? So maybe that's what that was about, but still. We jump to Chicago, and apparently we see two people in a bed, drowsy, morning, sexy type things, and it is his uncle and aunt. And apparently his uncle writes a traveling guide for black people, so like the Green Book, but the movie butchered this man's life, so we're not even going to talk about that part. But basically it's like the Green Book for this show. He calls it the guide. And he goes around the South and other places to mark down where it is safe for black people to travel. And his wife wants him to, stop doing it or take a break from it or something like that. And he's like, no. And then she's like, well, why don't I go and do it this time since you've done it so much? And he's like, no, you're a woman. And it's more dangerous and all this other stupid shit. And it's like, well, it's not dangerous for you. Like, it's okay if you die. Like, I'm confused. It's not chivalry. It's not taking care of your family. That's you putting your life in danger. And so he quiets her down by, you know, having sexy time again, you know, because he's tired of her questions, obviously. And then we go to the living room, and there's their little girl in the living room, and she is just amazing. She draws, she makes comic books. She's sitting there drawing a little character for her comic book, and she hears the bed squeak. She knows what that means, and she's just like, ew, that's gross. And then she hears somebody in the kitchen. It's Atticus climbing up the fire escape into the window. I don't know why he didn't take the front door. I don't understand why he didn't take, but he didn't take the front door. But anyways, he's climbing through the window. She screams because she's happy to see him, and then her parents run out and they're happy to see him. And then we shoot over to the uncle's garage. I think he fixes cars, and in front of the garage in the window is his books, his guide, you know, that he sells to black folks. And so Atticus walks in there with where his uncle is at, and he's like looking at his uncle's book. So he bonds with his uncle over what they call pulp fiction. I'm guessing that's science fiction, is what they called it back then. And he's looking at a book about Lovecraft, and you know, apparently Lovecraft was a whole racist, and he made a poem about black people because he was a whole racist. This is what the poem is called, On the Creation of Niggers. Let's read it. It's just a little blurb. It's a little poem that he set and thought to write down in his time. It just hurts my heart to know that you can't enjoy the art of people without realizing that they probably trash it some way. But yeah, let's go. When long ago the gods created earth, in Jehovah's fair image man was shaped at birth. The beasts for lesser parts were next designed, yet were they too remote from humankind to fill the gap and join the rest to man. The Olympian host conceived a clever plan. A beast they wrought, a semi-human figure, filled it with vice and called the thing a nigger. And it's, so many things in sci-fi today are based off of some shit Lovecraft did. You know, let's just make some new shit. Let's all make new shit. Let's all just make new shit not based off of evil and trash. How about we just, I have nothing, you know, and, you know, so Atticus, his father, made him read that poem when he caught him reading Lovecraft because he felt that Lovecraft was, you know, giving in to the white man and the racism and things like that. And he said that he doesn't want him reading Pulp Fiction and all this other shit. So Atticus is talking to his uncle about that. Then he tells his uncle about the letter his dad sent him. Apparently his dad has been hyper-focused on learning about his mother's family. And and finding out who they were for like a good portion of his life. He was focused on this. And he sent him a letter and he said that we finally found your birthright and finally found your mother's family. And it was sounding all cryptic and weird and creepy and all sorts of dumb shit. So Atticus was freaked out. He didn't know what this letter meant. So his uncle was just like, well, that does sound weird. So, you know, he wants to help Atticus, basically. You know, I feel like this show is like supernatural with racism and black people, and but I feel like I'm getting that vibe that let's go on an adventure and kill the demons, and there's Ku Klux Klan and racist people. And I feel like it's really interesting. I'm enjoying it so far. And in this episode, it took a while for them to get to the actual science fiction part. But the monster, the horror of most of this episode was just racism. Like, them trying to live their regular, normal lives, and then all of a sudden, because of how some other person feels when they look at them, they're in a war zone. You know, we're getting gas. Oh, they're pretending to be monkeys and laughing at us. You know, like, I'm living my regular life as a regular fucking human being. Oh, they're shooting shotguns and stuff and trying to kill us just because we wanted to eat breakfast. Like, but I like how it's set up. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that they made racism the monster and shined so much of a light on it. It was amazing. So anyways, next we are at we're watching Atticus walk through the town, and we're seeing like the cop is turning off the fire hydrants that the kids had on, so that they can't play in it anymore. And then we go see this older black man trying to recruit little kids to like the army or some shit like that. I was like they're little kids, like 10, 9, 12, shit like that. And it's like, why are you trying to, and Atticus is just looking at them like, so he's walking, we see some blue collar workers under a bridge, and then he goes into a bar. And I think this person that he meets at the bar is like a bully from when he was younger or some shit, because he gives him the cold shoulder when dude tries to say hi to him, be like, hey, it's me, it's da 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 da, I don't know. And then he just asks him where's the owner of the bar. So he tells him he's in the back. He goes to the back. The owner's getting his dick sucked in an alleyway by some motherfucking nigga. And, you know, I'm just like, I'm happy that, you know, Atticus isn't the type of person that is disgusted to the point where he would murder niggas. He just was like, oh, embarrassed because he was walked in on some shit, but he wasn't mean to this man. He was nice. It's the 50s or some shit like that, so it's kind of like, you know, anything's up for grabs at this point. Like that, he could have been mad about that shit and murdered this motherfucker in the alleyway or some shit, you know, all the things. So I'm glad Atticus was not that person, and I hope that man stays safe in his sexuality. Praise God, yes Lord. So the man sends the guy away that was sucking his dick, and then he's like, you know, trying to tell Atticus about his dad. And apparently his dad's an alcoholic, and he always comes to his bar and drinks and stuff, and that's why Atticus went there. And he hasn't seen his dad in 2 weeks, just like his uncle had said earlier that he hadn't seen his dad in 2 weeks. He said that his dad went off with some white man in a fancy car. He thought the white man was a lawyer or something like that because he had the fancy car. And so Atticus gets a little bit more information from this man, you know, who his uncle was talking to, who he went off with, or who his dad was talking to, who he went off with, and shit like that. Next, we are at a block party. So there's a block party happening that night, and a woman is singing on stage. And then we see Journey Smollett getting out of a taxi. She is, her name in this show is Letty. I think it's Letitia, shortened to Letty. And, you know, I'm remembering names, so I am out here clocking these motherfucking names. And so she gets out the car and she walks around, and she takes a camera and starts taking pictures of the crowd and of the woman singing on the stage. We come to find out the woman's her sister, and apparently, you know, her and her sister have issues because Letty just kind of is like out here nomading around the world and shit, and not having to hold down jobs and not doing, you know, not settling anywhere, and not holding down funding for herself. You know, at the very least, we got funding. You can be a nomad, but at least how are you gonna fund yourself? You know, and she wants to stay with her sister. And her sister is like putting a boundary because I guess she's tired of Letty coming and staying and basically mooching off of her and not having a job and not getting her life together. So she gives Letty 2 days. And Letty's like, well, that 2 days not enough time to find a job. And you know, and I'm guessing that she probably wouldn't have found a job anyway. So I want to know what the dynamic is between Letty and her family, because her siblings do not like her. They feel a type of way about her going around and trying to stay places. Her life is not together. Something happened to her. So I'm curious to know as we go further what happened to Letty. Why is she the way she is? Letty then sees Atticus. He is playing in the water with the people. And she's like, oh, is that Atticus from childhood? So apparently Atticus has been a blurred all his life. He's a little skinny blurred. And he was smart, and he liked comic books and all sorts of shit like that. So, you know, this is a beautiful thing. I feel like it's a nice thing. Next we see Atticus. He is with his uncle in his uncle's house. His uncle is icing his knees. Apparently the uncle's knees got shattered by some racist folks on one of the guide trips. You know, I just feel like those people that want to go back to the 1950s because it's more wholesome and shit like that, they were stringing people up from trees. How is that wholesome? You know, they were blatantly racist to people. Like, is it wholesome because you're white? Is it wholesome because you're white? Tell the truth. But, you know, he was just going on trips, driving around for the guide, marking where it was racist and it wasn't racist. And he got attacked and shit, fucked his shit up. So his uncle is talking to him and apparently trying to figure out where this town is that his dad went to. The town is called Ardham. It's vaguely mentioned here and there in history, but they don't know exactly where it is. And it's not on the map, but it's close to, you know, Devon. It's in Devon County, and it's close to this city called like Bingham or some shit like that. And his uncle has this map where he's marked on the map where all the different types of Ku Klux Klan is, and where not to go, and where death is, and all sorts of shit. So the town that's next to Ardham is marked as "Don't go to that motherfucker. Like the sun goes down, we will die." But whatchamacallit, Atticus wants to find his fucking dad, so he doesn't give a shit. And so his uncle is basically like, well, I'm gonna go with you. And he's like, you shouldn't come, and you know, your knees are fucked up, and you know, all this other shit, and it's dangerous. And his uncle's like, no, I'm gonna go with you. And then we see Atticus walking towards his dad's apartment. He's walking towards his dad's apartment, and he passes by. This is the first time we see the silver car. So he passes by a silver car that looks pretty nice and shit like that, but he doesn't see it that time. So he goes into his dad's apartment. He opens the Count of Monte Cristo. There's a book on the desk or something, and it is bookmarked by a picture of his dad and him and his mom. And then on the wall, there's a hole in the wall, like somebody punched it. You know, I can't fight, whatever. And apparently, so there's some domestic violence here. He witnessed domestic violence, or some violence, or some shit, or he experienced violence in this home. So we have established that something's going on where him and his dad don't get along. First of all, his dad doesn't accept that he likes to read sci-fi comic books and shit like that. Secondly, his dad does not agree that he went to the army. He feels like he went to join, you know, a fight that wasn't for him. And, you know, he felt some type of way about that shit, and they were getting arguments about it. So I guess he's trying to find clues at his dad's house. I don't think he finds anything, and he leaves. And then we are at the next day, and Letty is putting her shit into his uncle's car. So apparently Letty's gonna go with him halfway so that they can drop her off at her brother's house. Okay, whatever. So Letty is just scooting her way into this trip. Whatever. And Atticus is like whatever, his uncle's like whatever, and then Atticus' wife and his daughter comes out to see them off and do the checklist to make sure they have all the safety stuff they need. And Atticus' uncle's daughter, his cousin, gives her dad this comic book she wrote. So she writes comic books. She has Panther Man, and then this comic book was about a superhero that's a woman. And I guess it's a little tradition they have where she gives her dad comic books to read on the road trip. So he takes the comic book, and he's like, you know, does this little performance and stuff, and takes it, whatever the fuck. And they get in the car, and what happens? They get in the car, and then they start on the road, and then they're in the Midwest, and they're just driving, living life. This is like some scary shit. Like, I feel like the racism was the scariest part of this show. They just, you never know when some crazy white person was just gonna jump out and do some crazy white people shit. Like, it was like they were at a gas station just enjoying themselves and talking and getting gas, doing regular people shit. And these motherfuckers over here acting like they were monkeys because Atticus was eating a banana and he's black. You know, all the shit, and Atticus couldn't do shit about it because he knew he was outnumbered. He knew he probably would have got strung up from some tree if he tried to fight these motherfuckers. So he did throw a banana in their face. You know, that was brave. He was a brave soul doing that. He was a brave soul throwing a banana in them white people. I mean, you know, whatever. So they start driving again and just trying to enjoy life and get this girl to her brother's house. And then I think they end up in this town because, you know, I forgot what it was, why his uncle wanted to go to this town, but it has something to do with this red building that was at the end of town. And I forgot what it was about, so if you guys know, let me know. They end up in this town, and the red building turns out to be a diner. So they go into the diner, and Atticus is like telling them, like, why are we here? Like, you know, we don't need to take no detours and shit. shit. And they end up in the diner. His uncle's like got a rebellious streak. He's like, well, we deserve to eat. We have a right to eat. So they go into the diner, and there's this white man sitting at the counter. There's the kid that's the waiter serving food, and the white man and the kid are just looking at him. Like, and the kid's white too. And the white man gets up and leaves because, you know, they can take our bodily fluids into their babies. Their babies can drink our bodily fluid, but don't let them have to breathe our air. It's just toxic. You can drink our fluids, but you can't breathe our air. So he walks out. And, you know, they all try to order something to eat, you know. But I think they ordered water first. So they ordered water, and then the waiter goes into the back. And then Letty has to go use the bathroom. And again, I'm not sure why they were at this town. I know that Atticus just starts looking at the walls and starts asking about why the White House is white. And the uncle's talking about how how some part of the White House burned down and the slaves built it back up and repainted it white. And then they painted the rest of it white to match or some shit like that. And then, you know, Letty's in the back. And she's coming out of the bathroom, and she hears the waiter calling on the KKK to come and kill these black people that had the audacity to be hungry. The world's a horrible place. The world is a horrible place. And Letty runs out, and she starts screaming at the top of her lungs, like, we gotta get the fuck out of here. And they get out and leave and get in the car, and they're driving in, and around the corner comes these motherfucking white people with a shotgun and a scope on the shotgun. Did they have scopes back then on the guns and shit? Like, or was this just like they inserted some you know, some modern shit into the old timey shit? And they're chasing them, shooting them and shit, all sorts of crazy shit. So they're trying to get away, and then the silver car comes out of nowhere and rams the racist car, and their car flips. So Letty stops the car. She's the one driving, and this white woman gets out of the silver car, and she's wearing a black, not a black hat, she's wearing a black dress with a red hat, and she's just standing there staring at them. She has blonde hair. And then they leave. They just leave. So you can't do nothing. You can't walk around. You can't go to the bathroom. You can't eat. This is a horrible place to be in. I couldn't, no. I couldn't. If I go back in time, it's going to be to the ancient times, some country in Africa. We were kings and queens and shit. And just so I can walk around and look. I couldn't go anywhere else but that. I don't want to go anywhere else but that. You know, maybe to some island with the islanders and check them out. You know, maybe back to before America was founded and to hang out with the Native Americans and shit. You know, maybe some shit like I couldn't go anywhere where there was white folks. No. Y'all know the history. Pick up a book. You know you can't be around white folks at any point in time in history. Maybe caveman time. Maybe those times. But yes. I said what I said. So anyways, we end up at, what's her name? Letitia's house, where her brother is. And I guess her brother is into folklore and shit like that when it comes to, you know, the towns and stuff. So he found out a little bit about Ardham and found out that, you know, the town that is connected to Ardham, it's near Ardham, is known for like disappearances and crazy shit happening in the woods, and they'll be there after sundown and all this other shit. So he found some shit out. And also I noticed that they're like laughing about being chased by the racists. It's like, that's how you deal with trauma sometimes. You gotta laugh to keep from crying because they have to keep going. They don't have time to stop. Like, they have to live life, you know, still. So that, you know, that shit gets pushed down, pushed to the side, and gets turned into stress and anxiety and depression. Instead of shock and fight, flight, or freeze, it turns into angry outbursts and shit like that. You know, so, I mean, I guess, but I just feel like every time shit like that happens with the racists, they just, afterwards, they're just laughing and stuff. And it's a nervous laugh, of course, but it's just like, the shit we have to put up with, it's just horrifying. It's horrifying. So anyways, next, everybody has dispersed around the house. The uncle has called the wife, his wife, and he's talking to his daughter, and he's having his daughter talk to him about the comic book she wrote and explain it and all this other stuff. The mom has a telescope in the kitchen. I think that's really cool. She's looking at the stars. She's trying to find Cassiopeia and shit. So these are just scientists and geniuses and smart people and nerdy people and all sorts of shit, which is beautiful. And she gets on the phone with the uncle, and the uncle's like, saying to her, oh, next time I go on a trip, you know, you're gonna go with me too. And I'm just like, I thought it was foreshadowing of him dying, but when I saw the series previews, I was like, oh, okay, so he's gonna get back to his wife, and there's gonna be issues between him and his wife, and we'll just have to wait and see what that's about. So, you know, she just kind of sighs, and, you know, I don't know if she's just like, nigga, stop lying, or she is worried that he's gonna die too, just like I was worried. But she's just like, okay, sure, whatever. He gets off the phone. We go to Atticus. He's standing outside. He's listening to Letty and her brother argue. So her brother's upset. She never went to her mother's funeral. He gave her money to go. She didn't go. She's hopping around here and there from house to house. All this other shit. He's mad at her, calling her out of her name, being emotionally abusive and all sorts of shit. And I'm just like, well, is this a part of why Letty is hopping around from place to place and, you know, not feeling like she can settle anywhere or get a job or do stuff? Like, let me know. So, you know, they're arguing like hell out. The uncle comes out the house. The uncle's trying to comfort Atticus and be like, you know, this is probably a lot for you. And Atticus was like, well, no, it's I'm used to it. I've seen it and I've heard it. Apparently he got into some knockdown, drag out fight with his dad over some reporter coming and trying to interview him for being a Negro in the army and shit like that. And his dad's like, doesn't like that he was in the army. He feels like he was fighting for the white man in a country that doesn't like us, which is true. But it's like, if that's what he wants to do, like, you can't take that away from him and make him feel fucked up for it, you know. But his dad fought him. He hit him, and they started fighting. And that's why there was a hole in the wall when he went to visit his dad's apartment. So, yes. And he's feeling triggered in some type of way. Hearing Letty fight with her brother, and, you know, he tries to go in there and stop them, and his uncle stops him and says, no, that's family business, don't go in there, mind your business, all this other shit. And he's just like, he's like calling her out her name and being hella rude and shit. I mean, I think it would be like, you know, you guys, we can hear you, you know, do you need help, support, what's going on, because, you know, it's loud, say something. But I mean, it doesn't sound like he was hitting her or nothing, so, you know, maybe if he had hit her or was violent with her, I don't know. Maybe he was hitting her, who knows. Next day, though, Letty is going with them. She walks out the car, silently puts her bags in, and sits down to say shit to them. She's going with them. And next thing, we are in Brighton, Bringham, whatever the fuck the name of the city is, next to Ardham, which is invisible and has witches, witch hunters, and demons and shit in it. So they're driving around the forest looking for the magical bridge that's supposed to take them into Ardham, the bridge to Terabithia. But fuck that movie, because it wasn't magic, and they lied to me, and that little girl died. I thought it was magic. It wasn't. It was make-believe. I hate movies like that. Don't come for me. Don't come at me with no, oh, we're science fiction, we're fantasy, some magical shit's gonna happen here, and then come to find out it's all pretend and somebody's head or some shit. Like, that's some dumb shit. Don't do that. That's dumb. They're trying to find a bridge to Ardham, and it's getting later in the day, and they gotta get the fuck out of there before sundown, because that is a sundown town where they can get strung the fuck up. And Atticus gets out the car. I guess he's trying to walk and find the bridge now. And they like, get your ass back in the car. And he's like, I know it's sundown. And he's trying to, and, you know, he's standing there just looking. Like, maybe he's gonna spot the bridge, or the bridge is gonna magically appear while he's standing there looking. And Letty gets out the car with him, and they stand there talking and joking. And then here come the police coming up behind them, just scary and evil and horrible. And the officer is demeaning and makes him beg him and all this other stupid shit, and says that, oh, you have to, you know, be out of here in 6 minutes before the sun is down, or, you know, I'm gonna have to string you from a tree. Like, this is a horrifying place to be in. Like you need humor and shit to survive, because this is like an everyday 24/7 occurrence where you don't know if you're actually going to make it home that day, and the law is turn towards the fact that if you are murdered, it's not counted as a murder because you're not seen as a person. You know, I could never go back in time. Fuck going back in time. That's dumb. Wholesome. Fucking wholesome. That's stupid shit. So he lets them leave, and they have to go the speed limit, which is 25 miles an hour because the police is looking for any reason to pull them over now. And this motherfucking police officer comes up behind them and starts ramming the back of the car, like trying to make them go above the speed limit. And they have 6 minutes to get across the border, and they are literally 6 minutes away from the border of the county. So they cross the county, and you think they're scot-free. I felt it in my heart. I was like, oh, they're good. They're safe, because there was a lot of tension. You didn't know what was going to happen. The police officer was going to murder them and string them from a tree. You know, it was a lot of tension. They really used racism as the horror point in this show so fucking well. They really did. And I think it's really awesome how they just showed how racism is a monster that is out to get us all. So they get into the next county, and just a few feet away is a barricade of police officers. So they all know each other, of course. So this was a setup. They're going to kill them. It's not funny. It's not. It's just they're going to kill them. And so they go off into the woods with Atticus, Letty, and their uncle, and they got guns pointed at them. And they're threatening them and gaslighting them because Atticus is like, because they're accusing them of being robbers, of being burglarizers or whatever the fuck. And you know, because somebody got robbed a few nights ago. That's some bullshit they probably made up just to kill somebody. Why do you even need a reason? Why make up shit? You know, just if you're gonna just do it, just do it. Why are you making up shit to make it sound right in your head or some shit? Like what's you know, you gotta make it sound right. Do you feel guilt? Is there a slight hint of guilt? Is that why you have to make up a reason to kill these people? You know, like, I don't understand. It's dumb. So anyways, Atticus is like, we're not thieves. You can check the car. And then they're like, oh, the officer that pulled them over was like, oh no, this is a uppity nigga and shit. He's smart and shit and all this dumb shit. And so they're about to shoot them. And then all of a sudden, these vampire eyeballed mole rats come out of the forest and eat all the white officers. And it's beautiful. I think that they ate the white officers on purpose, because there were too many opportunities to eat these black people, and they got away too easily. So they run into the forest. The uncle falls. So he's that nigga that's gonna just fall, just stupid shit. But he doesn't get eaten. He just lays there. And he pries a flashlight out of a severed arm. And he just lays there. And so then Letty and Atticus, and then one of the police officer that pulled him over got his arm bitten off. And I'm just sitting there the whole time like, wouldn't he have bled to that? But then we find out why he didn't. And they're running through the forest, find a cottage, get in the cottage. The officer and his deputy get into the cottage too. And they were sitting there in a cottage. And then the uncle happens to make it through the forest. So he makes it through the forest with a flashlight. And so they figured out that the monsters are afraid of light. They start calling them vampires. I say many-eyed mole rat vampires because they look like giant mole rats with various eyes. You know, shout out to Kim Possible. And, you know, they realized that if they could get to the car, they could get the car and drive away. So Atticus is going to go. The officer doesn't trust Atticus because he feels like Atticus is going to just leave him there. You know, not Letty. Letty's not going to leave us here. You know, so the officer makes Letty go. And so Letty chooses to go without a flashlight, just running through the forest to the car, not eating. That's why I was just like, doesn't make sense. There's like a good 20 of them things out in the woods, and she just was able to run to the fucking car and get, you know what, whatever. So while she's running to the car, the officer starts growling and shit, the one that got his arm bit off, and he turns into a mini-eyed officer a mole rat vampire and starts to attack everybody in the fucking cottage. And you know, there's a deputy with a gun, So Atticus is looking at the deputy like, shoot him, shoot him. And then the uncle is looking at the deputy and very calmly is just like, you should probably shoot him. And then the deputy doesn't know what the fuck to do, so he's just looking at them and looking at the officer, and then all of a sudden the mole rat officer bites this nigga in the neck and chomps on his fucking jaw and neck, and he's dead, and it starts chasing him around the thing. So Letty makes it to the car, and she turns on the lights, and you know, you can see this thing is a mole rat. It fucking burrows into the ground like one of them mole things and shit. And so she drives the car, and she drives back to the cottage, and right before the officer mole rat is about to eat them, she rams into the cottage and runs him over. So they find some flares. They're throwing flares around and stuff to keep the mole rat vampires away from them. And then all of a sudden there's this giant whistle, and then the mole rat vampires just disappear. So somebody was in the forest protecting them from the mole rat vampires too. So you know, I don't know. So then it's the next morning. They're walking on the highway, and you know, they're covered in blood, and I'm just like, they're walking on the highway in the deep south covered in blood. Three black people. Okay. I'm thinking that the officer's gonna pull up on them, something bad's gonna happen, but no, instead they come across the magical Ardham Bridge. They cross the bridge, and they are in this manicured lawn castle type situation. They go up to the door, they see the silver cards there again for a third time in the episode, as I'm aware of, and some white man with a nice tailored suit, and you know, he had blonde hair, opens the door, he looks at Atticus and tells him, welcome home. So that's the end of the episode. The series previews makes it seem like there's some kind of birthright situation going on here, and families have to compete for it or some shit like that. I don't know, but this is going to be a good ass show. I want to know what's Atticus' relationship with his dad. What's up with that? I want to know what's Letty's relationship with her family. Why the fuck they don't like her like that. I want to know about the conflict we're about to see between the uncle and his wife in the later episodes that they showed in the previews, because it looks like some deep shit, like some deep ass shit. I'm excited for all the things. We still don't necessarily know what's going on. So, but this is going to be a bomb ass show. I'm excited. Jordan Peele, you know, and J.J. Abrams, he's made some stuff that is good, some stuff that's not so good, but you know, usually, you know, his stuff is pretty good, so they're working together in production of this, so I'm excited. And, you know, I'm excited to hear your comments. Like, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think the show's about, you know, especially from the series previews and stuff like that? What do you think's going on between the characters and their families, and what do you think is like in the series previews where they showed the wife is like trying to, you know, become her true self or some shit? I don't fucking know. And they're talking about a birthright and shit. Like, what do you think is going on? This shit is a lot. It's a lot. So yeah, I'm excited to see what happens next. I'm excited for next Sunday because I May Destroy You and P-Valley are ending. I think we're on the last 2 episodes for both. So yes, this is something new, and then I can start like reviewing like shows that I've already seen, like Euphoria and shit like that, because I'm getting other shows up the way. So let me know what you think, and I hope you enjoyed this review. Later days.